Everyone, and welcome to this evening's IHS MicroClass, which is entitled Functional Medicine, What's All the Buzz? So just before we start, what I'm going to do is give you an overview of what we're going to look at for the next 20 minutes. Functional medicine is a healthcare model that originated in the States in the early 90s, and it's developed a lot of interest and credibility over the last 20 years, and particularly in the integrated healthcare sector. And it's, some are saying it's potentially a solution to this global epidemic of chronic disease. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to look at why is there such an issue with chronic disease, or what is the prevalence of chronic disease? And then after that, what we're going to do is slightly touch on the biomedical model, which is the healthcare model which is used in mainstream medicine. And then what I'm going to do is talk you through the functional medicine model. So what is the model, and what are the core principles of it? How does it slightly differ from not even slightly, but how does it differ from the biomedical model, and why we think it's a really important healthcare model to use going forward to support chronic disease. So that's what we're going to look at over the next 20 minutes. So the first thing to consider is to first look at, well, what is the epidemic of chronic disease? So over the last century, there has been a major shift in the prevalence from acute to chronic disease, and this has resulted in a worldwide epidemic of the latter. So at the beginning of the 21st century, there was a huge prevalence of tuberculosis, pneumonia, and with the advances in modern medicine in using, for example, antibiotics, those acute diseases are now a lot less common. And also, however, what's happened is there's been an increase in chronic disease over the last century. And so there's a number of different, obviously a wide range of chronic diseases, but the four most common that are accounting to the most burden are cardiovascular disease, which accounts for most annual premature deaths at 17.5 million, and this is followed by cancers at 8.2 million, respiratory diseases at 4 million, and diabetes at 1.5. And the financial cost of this to the worldwide economy is huge, and this combined with mental health disorders, it's estimated to cost $47 trillion. So there's a huge financial burden worldwide as a result on the healthcare systems as a result of chronic disease, and this seems to be only increasing. And we, there's so much in the news around the IHS and how there's so many cutbacks and it's not able to manage the burden of diseases. So we need to look at a different way of managing chronic disease. And the other thing to consider as well is that life expectancy has actually increased in many countries. So for example, in England, it's increased from 79 to 81.3 years. It increased this increase happened between 1990 and 2013. So, albeit it's a small increase, but we are living longer. But unfortunately, with many individuals developing at least one chronic disease earlier in life than ever before, these declines in mortality simply mean that we are spending many more years of ill health. So individuals are living longer, but most individuals, or a huge proportion of individuals, are developing chronic diseases. And some are developing very early in life. So for example, type 2 diabetes is a chronic disease where your body, first of all, doesn't respond to insulin as effectively. Insulin is a hormone that helps you to take sugar into your cells. But eventually you don't produce insulin anymore. And this used to be where the prevalence used to be where people in their later life, or in their 40s, might develop type 2 diabetes. But we're now seeing individuals or children more so as young as 15 developing type 2 diabetes. And the current management for this is for them to inject insulin. So if you're starting to take medication at 15 years of age, and over the course of then as a result of your lifetime, that's a huge burden on the system, but equally on the individual, because a lot of these diseases, there's complications with them. So for example, individuals can develop conditions where they have to have legs amputated as a result of mismanagement of their type 2 diabetes. So there's not only a financial burden on managing the disease with medication, but then there's also complications that arise with them as well. So it's a huge issue that's basically arising. And I'm sure you're seeing a lot of, Jamie Oliver is doing a campaign at the moment. And there's a doctor called Dr. Rangan Chatterjee, who's trying to advocate as well to reduce sugar consumption of children, because that's one of the main drivers of type 2 diabetes. And this is just to show you here. So, for example, this is a chart from stats from the NHS, and whilst it's a little old, you can see what I'm trying to demonstrate to you is the increase in prevalence and how this is continuing to increase. So, for example, between 2007 and 2011, there was an increase in type 2 diabetes by 25%. That's a huge increase, and this only seems to be kind of going up and up and up and up. So it genuinely is an epidemic, and something that has to be addressed. So what's driving this increase in chronic disease? So some scientists suggest that the main driver of chronic disease arises from interactions between genes, diet, lifestyle, and the environment. So chronic diseases are lifestyle-driven diseases. Not always, but there's a lot of research to show that for a number of different diseases, particularly cardiovascular disease, diabetes, that lifestyle is driving the development of these diseases. And we're better able to understand it now as well, the role that nutrition and lifestyle and the environment are playing as a result of advances in technologies. So, for example, nutrigenomics is an emerging field of science which looks at how your genetics influences how you will interact with food or nutrients. And it's showing that we're all very different, but it's also highlighting that really that nutrition does play a major role in the development of chronic disease. So it's really an interesting time in nutrition, because advances in technologies are really enabling us to understand in more detail how nutrition is playing a role or influencing physiological dysfunction and contributing to disease development. There's also a growing body of scientific evidence as well that suggests that lifestyle intervention, and that's diet and lifestyle, is a vital element in the treatment of chronic disease, with results as effective as medication, but without the unwanted side effects or risks. So the current management for chronic disease is the use of medication. Individuals are given some lifestyle interventions, but a lot of the time the diseases will have to be managed through medication. So that's the biomedical model. So what the biomedical model is the main care or the mainstream healthcare model, and it's been really effective in treating acute diseases. So it's had many advances in treating and preventing infectious disease and trauma through this model, and it emphasizes the use of medication. So what the biomedical model will do is it will see that an individual, it will diagnose an individual with a disease. So there's a focus on the disease. And once the disease is diagnosed, the treatment is medication. Now, doctors obviously do advocate living a healthy lifestyle, but the emphasis to which they put the role that our lifestyle and nutrition plays on the disease is not that substantial. So really what the focus of it is you're diagnosed with a condition, and once you're diagnosed with a condition, you might be given some lifestyle intervention, or guidelines, but really what the main management or treatment is medication. And what that does is it manages, what's really important to note here is that it manages the condition. It doesn't reverse or address the underlying cause of the condition. Okay, so the individual still has diabetes or still has cardiovascular disease, but let's say hypertension, high blood pressure, but it's being managed with medication. So they're on medication long term. And unfortunately, there are often unwanted side effects with medication and also complications. So medication is incredibly effective at sort of amazing things in preventing infectious disease. But when it comes to chronic disease, it doesn't appear to be as effective at managing it. And we can see that with this financial burden that's placing on the system, chronic disease is placing on the system. So as a result, however, as we are seeing from the statistics, the biomedical approach is failing to halt this epidemic of chronic disease, purely just kind of managing it. And therefore, we need to consider other healthcare models. So the functional medicine is potentially one of those models. The functional medicine model, basically, it's an individualized, patient-centered, science-based approach that empowers patients and practitioners to work together to address the underlying cause of disease and promote optimal wellness. So we'll look at the different aspects of the functional medicine model over the next 10 minutes, but the first thing it's really important to highlight is that the functional medicine model aims, whilst they will diagnose an individual with a condition, They really want to understand what are the underlying causes that are driving the disease. And what they want to do is help help an individual to create the environment where that disease, if you address the underlying causes, you treat the disease, you can treat the disease without medication. And there's also a real emphasis on empowering patients. And there's a lot of coaching within the functional medicine model and really trying to support patients in making diet and lifestyle changes. In order for the functional medicine model to understand the underlying cause of the disease, it takes a detailed understanding of the patient's genetic, biochemical, and lifestyle factors. And what it does is it leverages that data to direct personalized plans that lead to the improvement of patient outcomes. So I'll explain how these personalized plans come up in a moment. What's important to note is, if within the biomedical model, you may be diagnosed with a condition and you receive medication, and everyone receives the same medication. With the functional medicine model, they aim to create nutrition and lifestyle interventions for the individual. And a lot of the time they're personalized in that two people with, let's say, type 2 diabetes may have different personalized plans based on their genetic and biochemical profile and their lifestyle and just different even psychological experiences they've had and traumas over the course of their life. So that's a key point to note as well. What it also does is, so how does it this is a really important point now, is how does the functional medicine model understand the underlying causes of the disease? So what it does is it first of all, it takes a bit of a different approach to understanding the disordered physiology that underpin the disease. So what it does is it describes web-like interconnections between internal physiological systems, and this moves beyond the reductionist approach of biomedical model. So within the biomedical model, there tends to be, biomedical model is brilliant at looking at systems and systems individually. So you might have an endocrinologist looking at the endocrine system, or you may have an immunologist looking at the immune system, and they can look at it in a huge amount of detail, and they're amazing experts in a specific system in the body. The functional medicine model differs in that it looks at how the systems of the body interact together to maintain health, and then how they interact together to contribute to the disease, or how disordered physiology contributes to the development of disease. So, for example, what the functional medicine model will do is it'll consider how does the digestive system influence the immune system, and how does that influence the endocrine system, let's say. So there's a constant systematic approach in understanding how the systems of the body interact together to lead to the development of the disease. And that's a key difference in the functional medicine model and the biomedical model. Based on this kind of different perspective, the functional medicine model has labelled 7 biological systems in which core physiological imbalances occur. So, and these are known as the clinical imbalances. So what that means is that the functional medicine model aims to understand disordered physiology in the system or in the body, and it names that as clinical imbalances. So these are the clinical imbalances. You've got assimilation, structural integrity, communication, transport, biotransformation and elimination, energy, and defense and repair. So these, to a degree, they mirror, but slightly, the defense and repair relates to the immune system mainly. Assimilation mainly refers to the digestive system, but it also takes into consideration the respiratory system. But it groups other systems differently. So, for example, it's named the systems of the body which produce hormones or neurotransmitters or molecules that lead to communication with the body as the communication system. And it looks at them collectively together. So it's a slightly different approach. It also takes a real focus on biotransformation and elimination. So that is how our chemical compounds or exogenous compounds, they are compounds that come outside of your body, biotransformed in the body and eliminated. So that's kind of the clinical imbalances. So this is a key difference to or a key aspect of the functional medicine model. And what it aims to do is then it takes these clinical imbalances and it tries to understand how do these clinical imbalances interact together and lead to the development of disease. So how do imbalances in the digestive system and, let's say, the immune system collectively lead to the development of autoimmune diseases or diabetes? There's a lot of research now coming out on the gut microbiome and how that influences the immune system, but also the nervous system, and the development of your brain, mood disorders, but also even your metabolism. So there's research to show that the gut microbiome influences how you metabolize food and how you biotransform nutrients in your liver. So it's a huge area that's expanding. But this is a key aspect of the functional medicine model. It's looking at how is the disordered physiology leading to development of disease. And what it really aims to do then is to understand how our nutrition, lifestyle, and environmental factors lead to development of clinical imbalances. There's another aspect of it that's really important as well, is that it's an individualized, and I kind of touched on this already, but it's just to highlight it again. So this is functional medicine model is an individualized, patient-centered approach. So what that means is that if you address the root cause rather than the symptoms, practitioners can become orientated in identifying the complexity of the disease. And they may find that one condition has many different causes, and likewise one cause may result in many different conditions. So as a result, the functional medicine treatment targets specific manifestations of disease in an individual. So you end up with this personalized approach. So this kind of explains that a bit better. So what this is saying is that you may have a number of imbalances. So imbalances in inflammation, hormones, and genetics contribute to the development of diabetes, of obesity. But equally, one imbalance, like inflammation, may lead to the development of many conditions. So this is just a really good slide that summarizes what we've kind of talked about over the last 20, or looked at over the last 20 minutes. So here is like specific chronic diseases. So you've got heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. And these diseases are usually identified in an individual and treated with medication. Functional medicine model, whilst it would always advocate the use of medication where necessary, it also aims to understand what is the underlying clinical or physiological imbalances lead to the development of these diseases. So is it immune imbalances, digestive imbalances, and mitochondrial imbalances? And then looking at the root cause, it aims to see, well, has stress led to the development of this? Have nutrients and physical trauma, diet, attitudes as well? It really takes into consideration the individual's attitude and how that influences the development of disease. So it's a slightly different way of looking at the body, but through using this approach, the ultimate aim is to help to support the body in managing or supporting the individual through the use of nutrition and lifestyle changes. And as a result, it also ends up in the personalized approach to each individual. So that is the, hopefully you've gotten a good overview of the functional medicine model in this micro class. Just to let you know that these are the IHS courses that explore the functional medicine model. So there's the Diploma in Nutrition, Lifestyle and Chronic Disease. So this is a one-year diploma that looks at the role that nutrition and lifestyle may play in the development of chronic disease. It looks at the research on it, and it also looks at starts to look at the functional medicine model's approach to chronic disease. And then there's also the Diploma in Personalized Nutrition and Therapeutics. So this looks at the nutrition and lifestyle interventions that may support an individual as well. So for more info, we are going to do another Facebook Live microclass on Wednesday, the 30th of May at 8 p.m. And the topic is still to be confirmed, so please get your requests in. And we also have information evenings as well. So there's actually one tomorrow in Dublin at 6:30 p.m. So if you are interested in attending that, there's a link here. And there's also an online information evening as well on Wednesday, the 16th of May at 7 p.m. So if you're interested in attending the online information evening and hearing a little bit more about our classes, please contact the college or send an email and you'll be enrolled onto it. For more information on the courses as well, if you click on the Institute of Health Sciences, you'll find an outline of the different courses that we have. And that's it. So I hope you enjoyed this micro class. And as I said, the topic is still to be confirmed for the next one. So please get your requests in if there's anything that you want to hear a bit more information on. Thank you.